Patricia Heaton as Deborah Barone. Deborah Barone is always seen with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, a patient gaze, and endless sighs between her clumsy husband and hot-headed mother-in-law. Patricia Heaton was 38 years old when the film Everybody Loves Raymond premiered in 1996. The role of Deborah not only made audiences laugh, but also allowed them to see themselves in her. Patricia was born on March 4, 1958, in Bay Village, Ohio. She grew up in a strict Catholic family, but tragedy struck her early. Her mother died suddenly of a brain aneurysm when Patricia was only 12. This loss became a silent wound that followed her throughout her life, sparking a deep longing for a complete family, something Deborah Barone later longed for. Patricia's adulthood was a journey of faith and identity. Her first marriage ended in divorce, plunging her into a spiritual wilderness where she grappled with doubt, pain, and a deep longing for love. When Everybody Loves Raymond reached its climax, no one knew that Patricia was struggling with alcoholism. Deborah's smile was genuine, but also a mask. Alcohol was her way of numbing the emptiness behind the spotlight. But Patricia wouldn't let it break her forever. She sobered up, publicly shared her story, and inspired thousands of women suffering in silence. Her role on the series The Middle from 2009 to 2018 was a new lease on life for Patricia. She slowed down, devoting herself to motherhood, art, and her role as a mentor. In 2025, at the age of 67, Patricia Heaton is still acting on television, but has chosen a quieter path, focusing on her family and humanitarian projects. Her net worth is estimated at around $40 million, reflecting not only a star, but also a woman who once stood on her own 2 feet. Sullivan as Michael Barone, a brown-haired boy with large, round eyes. He always appears next to his twin brother Jeffrey in the Barone family living room. That's Michael, played by Sullivan since 1996, when he was just 1 year old. For 9 seasons, he and his twin brother, Sawyer, grew up before viewers' eyes, bringing innocent laughter to Everybody Loves Raymond. Born on May 12, 1995, in Brownwood, Texas, Sullivan was destined for fame before he could even speak. But the spotlight quickly dimmed when the series ended in 2005. The true darkness fell on April 23, 2015, when Sawyer, his twin brother, best friend, and part of his soul, took his own life at the age of 19. No role could have prepared Sullivan for such a shock. From that moment on, they became a pair of twins without each other, a pair of twins without their other half. Silence replaced the flashes of cameras. The smiles in old photographs now evoke only sharp memories. No scandals, no red carpets, just a young man trying to heal a wound so invisible it may never fully heal. Despite brief appearances in the films Frank McCluskey, CI in 2002 and Casting in 2017, Sullivan chose to live in obscurity. He abandoned fame, lived modestly, and occasionally engaged in quiet mental health pursuits because he knew better than anyone the price of silent suffering. In 2025, at the age of 30, Sullivan was living a quiet life away from Hollywood. His net worth was estimated at around $2 million, an amount from his childhood that no one expected would become the first chapter of a story that would never be written. Sawyer as Jeffrey Barone. On Everybody Loves Raymond, Jeffrey Barone has always been a gentle, shy boy and the perfect half of the cutest twins on television. When the series debuted in 1996, Sawyer was only 1 year old. Since then, he has grown up in front of the eyes of the entire United States for 9 seasons. Born on May 12, 1995, in Brownwood, Texas, Sawyer and his siblings moved to California to join the cast. Life seemed like a dream full of spotlights. But that dream only lasted until 2005, when the series ended. Sawyer was only 10 years old then. But the silence after the final applause was heavier than any role he had ever played. No more lines, no more studio, no more Jeffrey. Sawyer is left alone, cut off from the world of entertainment, living quietly with his twin brother in their riverside home. The echoes of fame are too loud, leaving him trapped between 2 worlds, a glorious past and an eerily silent present. Everyone continued to call him Raymond's sweet boy, but no one realized he was struggling with a deep depression. On April 23, 2015, just 3 weeks before his 25th birthday, Sawyer committed suicide by shooting himself in his home. The news shocked Hollywood. Former co-stars like Romano, Garrett, and Patricia Heaton mourned his death. At the time of Sawyer's death, His net worth was estimated at $2 million. However, no number can fully capture the loss. And an image that moved many to tears, an old picture frame. Jeffrey stood in the living room, hugging his teddy bear, with a gentle smile. A smile that had once brought joy to millions of people, but now couldn't save him. Meline Sweetin as Allie Barone. Meline Ann Michelle Sweetin was born on June 27, 1991, in Brownwood, Texas, United States. When Everybody Loves Raymond aired in 1996, he was only 5 years old. As Allie Barone, Ray and Deborah's eldest daughter, she and her twin brothers, Sawyer and Sullivan, became childhood icons on American television. For 9 seasons, the sweet, smiling girl grew up before millions of viewers, providing a rare innocence amid the conflicts of adults. But one day, the studio lights went out. When the series ended in 2005, Meline left the set and disappeared into the void. Hollywood didn't know what to do with the adult Allie Barone. She was withdrawn, lost in countless failed auditions and long silences. Even more painful was watching her closest brother, Sawyer, withdraw, fall silent, and fade from the spotlight. On April 23, 2015, Meline's world fell apart. Sawyer Sweetin, the brother she had laughed with, played with, and grown up with, took his own life at the age of 19. She lost not only her siblings, but also part of her childhood. Since then, Meline has transformed her pain into purpose in life. She has become a strong voice for children forgotten by fame. Today, at 34, Meline Sweetin continues to work in the industry on her own terms, working independently, writing, producing, and speaking out about mental health. Her net worth is estimated at $5 million, partly due to her past successes and partly due to her courage as someone who stood on the edge and decided not to fall. Doris Roberts as Marie Barone. Every time Marie Barone appears on screen, viewers hold their breath. What will she say today to drive Deborah crazy? In Everybody Loves Raymond, the legendary mother-in-law appears with a sharp gaze, perfectly witty lines, and boundless love for her son. Doris Roberts was 71 years old when the series aired in 1996. She not only played Marie, she lived the role. Doris May Roberts was born on November 4, 1925, in St. Louis, Missouri, and grew up abandoned by her father. He disappeared without a word, leaving young Doris with her mother and grandparents in the Bronx, New York. Her father's absence left a huge void in her childhood, which she tried to fill with art and a longing for love. In 1956, she thought she had found a home with her husband, Michael Kanata, but the marriage quickly fell apart. In 1962, she became a single mother, working and raising her children, trying to stay strong despite a broken heart. There seemed to be light at the end of the tunnel when she met the writer William Goyen, a man who loved her with an artist's heart. But life dealt her another cruel blow. Goyen was diagnosed with leukemia and died in her arms in 1983. With no one to turn to, Doris poured all her emotions onto the stage, turning her pain into art. Her role as Marie Barone saved her. This character pulled her out of darkness, earning her 4 Emmy Awards and the love of millions of fans. But behind the scenes, Doris quietly battled chronic pulmonary hypertension. Every breath was a fight. Doris Roberts took her last breath on April 17, 2016, at the age of 90. She left behind an estimated net worth of $14 million at the memorial service at the Ambassador Theater. The lights dimmed as Marie Barone made her final appearance. She smiled radiantly, but this time in farewell. Robert Culp as Warren Wheelan. Warren Wheelan doesn't need to speak to be heard. In the play, Everybody Loves Raymond, he plays Deborah's father, a quiet, caring man who appears with a gentle smile and wise eyes. Robert Culp was 66 years old when he took on the role in 1996, and he brought to the character a depth of a life filled with quiet pain. Robert Martin Culp was born on August 16, 1930, in California. He grew up dreaming of becoming a comic book artist. But fate led him to the movies, where he shone in leading roles, most notably in I Spy opposite Bill Cosby. With his clean-cut appearance, subtle voice, and intelligent gaze, he was the kind of man audiences admired. But behind that aura hid a weary soul. Robert has been married 5 times, 4 of which ended in divorce. Each separation left scars, small but lasting. He longs for a full and lasting home, but love seems to elude him. Still, he tried to be a devoted father, especially to his children, who followed in his footsteps and entered the art world. While Hollywood gradually forgot about him, Robert didn't give up. He wrote a screenplay and dreamed of making a film based on Terry and the Pirates, a character who had inspired him as a child. Time was no longer on his side, but his passion remained as strong as the day he first walked onto the set. On March 24, 2011, Robert Culp died suddenly of a heart attack while walking through Runyon Canyon Park in Los Angeles, a place where he often sought peace from the hustle and bustle of the city. He was 79 years old. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at $5 million, but his true legacy is more than money. It's the quiet roles he played, a life filled with the pursuit of love and enduring hope. Fred Willard as Hank McDougall. Hank McDougall, Amy's wacky, conservative, and strangely charming father. Doesn't appear much in Everybody Loves Raymond, but when he does, he's memorable. When he joined the cast in 2003, Fred Willard was 68 years old, and he brought with him not only extraordinary charm, but also an unexpected darkness. Fred was born on September 18, 1933, in Cleveland, Ohio. He served in the military before getting into comedy. He was a star in every project he was involved in, from top films to contemporary family films, with his own unique sense of humor, both funny and sophisticated. At the center of the story was a love that lasted 50 years. Fred and his wife, Mary Lovell, were once considered Hollywood's paragons of enduring loyalty. But in the last years of her life, Mary became seriously ill. Fred stood by her, silently watching his partner pass away. When Mary died in 2018, he was no longer the same. Behind the laughter now lies a void that no one can fill. Even worse was the scandal of 2012. Fred was arrested in an adult cinema, although no charges were filed. The incident cost him his job at PBS and made him tabloid fodder. Fred once said it was the most humiliating and painful moment of his life, a stain he could never wash away, despite a lifetime of comedy and art. Fred Willard died on May 15, 2020, at the age of 86. The cause of death was cardiac arrest following a long battle with arterial disease and bone marrow disease. His net worth at the time of his death was approximately $10 million. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, the final resting place of many Hollywood legends. The last photo circulating online showed Fred smiling, eyes twinkling, holding a fake trophy in a sketch, a tender farewell, very much his style. No trumpets, just smiles and a little sadness. Ray Romano as Ray Barone. Everyone laughs as Ray Barone jumps between his mother, his wife, and his tall brother. But few people know that Ray Romano, the man behind the laughter, is fighting a battle no camera has ever captured. In 1996, at the age of 39, Ray took on a role that would go down in television history, Everybody Loves Raymond. Ray was born on December 21, 1957, in Queens, New York. He was a math-loving kid who unexpectedly found his calling in comedy. He grew up in a large Italian-American family where humor was the only way to survive heated debates. After performing stand-up comedy in New York, Ray entered the world of television with a show based on his own life. But fame came too fast and furious. As an actor, writer, and producer, Ray became the highest-paid sitcom actor of his time. The pressure to keep the show at the top of the ratings left him unable to sleep, drained of energy, and falling into a deep depression. Every time he made millions laugh, he hid tears behind the scenes. The real tragedy occurred in 2011. While filming Men of a Certain Age, Ray received terrible news. His wife, Anna, was diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. He dropped everything to be by her side. Despite sleepless nights, hidden tears from his children, and whispered prayers. Thankfully, Anna made a full recovery, but something in Ray changed forever. Now, at 67, Ray Romano lives a quieter life. He still acts and does voiceovers, but spends most of his time with his family. His net worth is estimated at over $200 million, but his true worth lies beyond the numbers. It lies in the strength of a man who once stood silent and then rose up so that the world could continue to laugh with him. Peter Boyle as Frank Barone. With his trademark growl and punchline, Frank Barone, a tough dad who ranks among the most eccentric in sitcom history, captivated audiences with his unparalleled charisma. Peter Boyle was 61 when Everybody Loves Raymond premiered in 1996. His role as Frank not only made people laugh, but also made them think. Peter Boyle was born on October 18, 1935, in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and grew up in a strict Catholic environment. He spent his childhood in a monastery, initially planning to become a priest. But one day, without explanation, he left the monastery and began wandering the Chicago theater scene, eventually making his way to the silver screen. Just as his career was reaching its peak, tragedy struck. In 1990, a severe stroke left him paralyzed on one side and speechless. 6 long months passed in silence. Hollywood had forgotten him, and he feared he would never act again. But with an iron will, Boyle returned. In 1996, he won an Emmy for his guest appearance on The X-Files. A sweet victory after nearly being written out of the film industry. But that wasn't the end. While filming Everybody Loves Raymond in 1999, he suffered a heart attack on the set. The entire crew was stunned. From that moment on, Boyle returned to his faith, preparing to quietly battle multiple myeloma and heart disease. On December 12, 2006, Peter Boyle died in a New York hospital at the age of 71. His net worth is estimated at $8 million, most of which he donated to a cancer research foundation founded by his wife. The last image that stuck with fans? Frank Barone alone on a sofa, his eyes staring into the distance, and his whispering voice still reflecting the sadness of a man who had almost lost the ability to speak. Georgia Engel as Pat McDougall. Pat McDougall always seemed to come from another world, where every word was gentle and every sadness was hidden behind a gentle smile. When Georgia Engel joined the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond in 2003 as Amy's mother, she was 55 years old and had a lot of roles under her belt. Few people know, however, that she carries a sadness within her that no one can understand. Georgia was born on July 28, 1948, in Washington, D.C. She captivated America with her role as Georgette, a sweet, slightly wacky character in the Mary Tyler Moore television series. The role brought her fame, love, and a curse. She was so limited to the role of an innocent doll that no one dared give her deeper, more serious roles. Georgia never married, had no children, and devoted most of her life to theater and faith. A Christian Science believer, a sect that rejects modern medicine, she chose a life of spirituality, prayer, and peace. However, as she grew older, this belief became a double-edged sword. Although she appeared in Hot in Cleveland with Betty White, acted on Broadway, and appeared in plays such as The Drowsy Chaperone, Georgia's health began to deteriorate. Her family was concerned, and her colleagues urged her to seek treatment, but she refused. For Georgia, God was the only doctor she needed. On April 12, 2019, Georgia Engel died peacefully at her home in Princeton, New Jersey, at the age of 70. Without an official diagnosis, no one knew what was wrong with her. People wondered if she would have accepted treatment. Would she have survived? Her net worth was estimated at $8 million, the result of 6 decades of dedication, devotion to her art, and a faith that could have cost her her life. Katherine Helmond as Lois Wheelan. In the Barone family kitchen, Lois Wheelan, Deborah's mother, is always seen with a calm demeanor, gentle gaze, and soft voice. When Katherine Helmond was cast in the 2003 sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond, she was 67 years old. But there's no doubt about it, this woman is a legend. From soap operas to Who's the Boss, and she made the whole world laugh with a single eyebrow raise. Born on July 5, 1929, in Galveston, Texas, Katherine grew up during the Great Depression. She overcame poverty, made her way to Broadway and Hollywood, and became one of the most iconic comedic figures of the 1980s. But beneath her endless charm lurked a quiet loneliness and a haunting fear of aging. Her only loyal companion on the journey was her husband and soulmate, film director David Christian. They had been together since 1969, weathering life's storms together. But then a silent enemy emerged, Alzheimer's disease. Gradually, Katherine began to forget her lines and even the names of her co-stars, roles that defined her career. A stage legend, now lost in her own memories, she withdrew from the entertainment industry, saying goodbye to her role as Lizzie in Cars and abandoning countless other projects. Every day was a silent struggle. Her husband was no longer a director, but the guardian of her final memories. On February 23, 2019, Katherine Helmond died peacefully in her home in Los Angeles, at the age of 89. Her net worth was estimated at around $5 million. However, her greatest legacy was her irreplaceable career. In recent days, she reportedly smiled whenever someone mentioned the name Mona, even if she couldn't remember why it held such significance. Brad Garrett as Robert Barone. Every time Robert Barone slips through the door, the audience bursts into laughter. tall, dark, and always on the sideline. Robert is the voice of the forgotten. In 1996, Brad Garrett played Robert at the age of 36. For 9 seasons, he reminded Americans of his forgotten brother, combining humor with genuine sadness. Brad Garrett was born on April 14, 1960, in Oxnard, California. Before entering the world of sitcoms, he was a deep-voiced stand-up comedian, but behind that laugh was a complicated past. Brad grew up in a dysfunctional family, and his adult life was filled with nights spent drowning in comedy as a way to avoid real emotions. As Everybody Loves Raymond reached its peak, Brad's personal life began to unravel. His seemingly perfect marriage to Jill Diven fell apart after 7 years. A bitter custody battle ensued, leaving Brad with deep emotional wounds he rarely shared. Few people know that Brad quietly struggled with alcoholism. Even after winning an Emmy for his role as Raymond and transforming into comedy legend Jackie Gleason in the 2002 film Gleason, he was still a man trying to mend a broken heart, find peace as a father, and come to terms with failure. Then came the most devastating blow, not from real life, but from his own family, portrayed on television. In 2015, Sawyer Sweeten, the boy who called him Uncle Robert on set, committed suicide. Brad was devastated, considering Sawyer his second family. From then on, he was no longer the carefree comedian he once was. In 2025, at 65 years old, Brad Garrett is still performing as a stand-up comedian and running the Brad Garrett Comedy Club in Las Vegas. His net worth is estimated at $50 million, but what truly remains are the scars, the laughter bought with tears, and the compassion Robert Barone never knew. But Brad has learned to accept it all.